Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Making a Difference here on Buzz TV. I'm your host, Wayne Veldsman. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, the actual development director of Adelante Foundation, Miss Jodi Fischer. Jodi, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's really exciting whenever we get entrepreneurs or just people in the nonprofit space that are sort of having a global impact. And so to kick us off, tell us just a little bit about Adelante Foundation, please.
Well, Adelante Foundation's been in existence for over 20 years. We typically serve anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 women who are underserved in Honduras that lack access to capital and haven't had a chance to acquire any credit history. So we give them microloans so that they can grow and start businesses. But yeah, this over 70% of the women in Honduras live in poverty. And so the idea is to give them a hand up instead of a handout. And it not only helps improve their welfare, but also helps decrease migration and displacement.
Wow, over 70% of the women live in poverty in Honduras. And I love there what you said about giving a hand up instead of a hand out. You guys are doing some amazing things and why for the last 20 years. Can you speak a little bit more on that exact phrase that you said, right? Instead of giving a hand out, you're giving a hand up. What do you mean by that?
Sure. I've been working in the international development space for 15 plus years. And often there's wonderful work happening globally to serve under vulnerable populations. But what I've found is that microfinance is one of the most powerful, sustainable solutions for communities because ultimately you're letting them have agency over their own lives and choices. And by giving them microloans instead of just giving them free products or services, they are able to then utilize those dollars to advance themselves based on what they choose they want to spend that money on. We do, of course, have well-being officers, or our word for credit officers, that essentially help these women to gain some financial literacy and education skills that are necessary to accompany those funds, which helps them to be more successful in their enterprises.
Wow, I absolutely love that. And so we're seeing microfinancing and microloans. My guess is that it's small amounts, but what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, in Honduras, that amount ranges. It's anywhere from $50 to $300 or upwards of $1,000. It just depends on where they're at in their business development. So, for example, like a first-time woman that we might work with, we would give them a loan that would likely range from $100 to $300. As they continue to request additional funds from our organization, that might increase to a larger loan.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you all are doing so much more than just providing financing, right? I think I noticed online you have a big portion that's going towards education as well, right? What do you think sort of is the importance of education in this?
Well, we find that it's an elective, so they don't have to do it, but we strongly urge women to do it. So the well-being officer, when the women first start working with us, will determine, oh, okay, it looks like you have the skills in this area, but we really recommend you take this, this course, this webinar, this, depending on where the gaps of their knowledge are. But it's super important that if women understand how to balance a budget, or if they better understand how to save funds, it's not just financial literacy, it's also industry specific. So if a woman, for example, is working in the agricultural sector, we would want to supply them with additional resources that help them to understand the value of, say, crop diversification.
Of course, that's wonderful that you guys are getting so granular and specific based on what they're doing versus just this sort of broad curriculum and even forcing people to do it. You guys have been around for 20 years, and so I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but what do you think is the difference of, forcing these women to get the education first, right? To take these classes, seminars, whatever it might be, versus, as you said, it's sort of volunteer based or almost just suggested. Where's sort of the difference and the benefit between those two things?
That's a good question. When we first started doing this kind of work, we were doing solidarity group loans. So women, for example, would be in groups of 5 to 8. They would be responsible if anyone defaulted on their loan. And at that time, education was mandatory. We've just found that over the years that when we make something mandatory, then some women will go to a different microfinance organization, because Adelante Foundation is one of the only nonprofit microfinance organizations working in Honduras. We're there because we want to serve vulnerable women, whereas there's other for-profit microfinance organizations in the country that have a higher percentage interest rate. They charge higher fees. They're more predatory. So we do want the women to, we try to help them understand the value of using our organization. But if we make education mandatory, we do lose some of the women who find it difficult to allocate the time necessary to do that. So we've evolved over the time. Through COVID, we started doing more education online. And so we're trying to do more and more of that, because we're finding that the majority of the women we work with, even though they live in poverty, they are still able to access information online.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's so interesting to hear, right? That there was this issue happening that individuals would go to other organizations that are, like you said, almost predatory, right? That they're there to make money off of these women, whereas you all are one of the only nonprofits. And by making that simple tweak of let's make our education voluntary, right, instead of mandatory, so many more were attracted to you all. And so, Jodi, I just want to thank you so much. You're making such a big difference in this world, and I'm no doubt that you're inspiring a lot of people as well. And so thank you for that difference, and thank you so much for being here today as well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I want to say thank you to everybody out there for tuning in. If you want to learn more about Jodi and the amazing work over there at Adelante Foundation, please visit us at iwantabuzz.com. Till next time, my name is Wayne Veldsman, and you've been listening to Making a Difference.